For more, we're joined now by Yossi Mekelberg, Senior Consulting Fellow with the Middle East and North Africa Programme at Chatham House. Thanks so much for being with us on the programme. Firstly, this new operation that we're seeing beginning today in the occupied West Bank, how exactly does it differ to what the IDF is already doing there and has been doing since the start of the year, essentially?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's not very different because we saw very similar operation in the towns of Jenin and Tulkarm, and Shams, when in refugee camps, basically more than 30,000 people were driven out of their homes and many houses been destroyed there. So in this sense, there is an element of continuation of that, just to show everyone the volatility of the situation there and the lack of any political progress leads to entrenchment of the occupation. Yes, there are armed groups, whether it's the Lion Dance or the Jenin brigades and others, but it derives from the lack of any progress on the political front, any hope of political solution in the near future, which people living under occupation, there is different elements of resistance there, and then the military is. It's not only the military, but also the government know only one way to address it. It's the only one modus operandi of using force.
Yeah, because the IDF says it's targeting Palestinian armed groups, but local officials are describing this as a political rather than a security operation. Would you agree with that view?
I think it's a combination between the two. On the one hand, it's counter-militancy operation. There are militants, there are armed groups in these places, and the army is trying to, whether they arrest them, or in the case of resistance, we saw also that a number of militants have been killed. But at the same time, the message is a very oppressive message to the population. If you won't do that, and this is the leaflets that they're actually disseminated today and already yesterday, that if you won't do that, your life is going to be very difficult. So there is a common, one is trying to fight with the militant groups, but on the other hand, there is a strong element there of collective punishment of the population there. Mind you, this is at the time that terrorism by settlers has gotten worse and worse over the last months with complete impunity.
And why is there such impunity? How many settlers are actually within the ranks of the Israeli military itself, and is that playing a role here?
I think it would be fair to say that most settlers are not involved in this kind of violence. But there is a hardcore there among the settlers, the most extreme. This is the only way they know. What they try to do is send a message to the local population, the Palestinians there, that they are unwanted in their own homes. Those are people that thinks that the entire West Bank, some of them also think Gaza should be annexed to Israel, and at best they will tolerate Palestinians. Some of them would like to expel them. But the problem is you have the most right-wing government in Israel, in which Netanyahu is dependent on the messianic religious nationalist in government because of his corruption trial. And this is what has dictated the policies of this government over the last 3 years, whether when it comes to attack on the democracy in Israel, the way that the war in Gaza was conducted, and the kind of what we see, the kind of pictures that we just see of what's happening in the West Bank.
And do you see evidence that this rising violence, this upsurge in attacks, is it testing relations in any way between the Israeli military and its political establishment?
I think we saw already tension between the military establishment and the government over the decision to enter into Gaza City, and the chief of staff was very clear that he was against it. We see intervention by the defense minister when the chief of staff, Eyal Zamir, tried to make some changes within the government, including in personnel as a result of conclusion of what happened in October 7, 2 years ago. So this is the government that doesn't recognize whether the relations, military, civil military relations, the way they work, or with the judiciary, with the legislative. It's becoming a more an autocratic government, and the result of it is create also very difficult lines of operation between the executive, but also whether it's the police or the military.
And given that these Israeli settlers are backed by those hard right elements in Netanyahu's government, is it more or less inevitable at this stage, do you think, that we're heading for some kind of dangerous confrontation here?
We are already in a very dangerous confrontation. They try to interfere violently with, this was the season of the olive harvest, attacking communities, Palestinian community, while they're harvesting their olives, which is a major source of income, completely unprovoked, beating up innocent civilians. This is the situation, and unfortunately, instead of the Israeli security forces protecting the victims, they tend to actually protect the victimizer, and this has been going for way too long. And I'm afraid, unless there is, very clear voice from the international community under this government, we won't see any difference.
Yeah, because Hamas as well today calling on the international community to intervene. Why is the world simply turning away from what's happening in the West Bank, you see?
I think this is a very good question that we should ask governments around the world, whether it's in Europe, the United States, why there is not, when we see the can identify the settlers, why there is no demand from the Israeli government, first to stop it, B, to charge these violent settlers, probably even to remove them from the West Bank. And this should be every time that such an incident, I think responsible elements of the international community, especially those who have close relations with Israel, should demand it. I think also it's for the rest of the settlers that are not involved with that, because they're also tend their own reputation and the ability in the future of Israelis and Palestinians to live together and coexist peacefully.
And do you think that this upsurge in violence, it's likely to have an impact on efforts to move to the second phase of the ceasefire in Gaza?
I think it makes it way more difficult. As it is, moving to the second phase is extremely difficult, because that's where I think both sides are going to be tested, about their true intention. Whether Hamas is ready to disarm, whether Israel is ready eventually to completely withdraw from Gaza, allowing building a new governing body led by Palestinians there, and so on and so forth. While this is happening, where there is ongoing violence, when you need to build trust, this is actually make it even worse in the ability to build confidence, to build trust between the sides, and with that the readiness to make concession. In all of that, we forget the role of the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian security, which has completely been sidelined by the IDF in order to do what we've seen today and throughout this year in different parts of the West Bank.
And Yossi, what do you think is the ultimate goal here of the Israeli government? Is it effectively trying to take complete control of the already occupied West Bank?
So it depends what part of the government. So also from the military point of view, they try to reduce the danger from our groups. Within the government, for Netanyahu, it's mainly to survive in power and reach someone the point that there are new election and still stays as prime minister. As for the far right, they would like to see more of this. They thrive on the clash between Israel and Palestine. They thrive on continuing the conflict and violence to at one point or another justify why there is no place for a two-state solution, but only the use of force and annexing the West Bank. And this is something that we have seen over the year. And exactly this goes back to the point, as long as this government in Israel, there is no chance to move from this kind of formula of using only force without any strategy or diplomatic horizon.
Yossi, we'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks so much for being with us this evening. That's Yossi Mekelberg, Senior Consulting Fellow at Chatham House. Well, that's it from us for now. Stay with us, though, for more world news here on France 24.